Hi everyone. Today we want to go over how to find the cube root and square root of a couple numbers. So if we have say this situation, we have the problem square root of 25. Now remember, this sign looks a lot like the division sign, but with the little check in the front, that means to take the square root. So what did square root mean? Square root is where we're looking for a number that times itself that gives us that number. So the square root of 25 would be 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, so we're looking for what number times itself that gives us back to 25. Now we need to be careful when we do square roots. Technically 5 is not just the only answer. A positive 5 times by another positive 5 does equal 25. But what happens if we also go negative 5 and we times that by another negative 5? Well, negative times a negative also makes a positive, and 5 times 5 is still 25. So technically the answer is not just 5, but it's what we call positive and negative 5. Okay. Now, when you do your assignments with me on Canvas, it's okay if you just put the answer of 5. But you need to be careful when you get into the ALEKS assignment that some of the problems in ALEKS are going to ask for a positive and negative. Okay, so that's why I wanted to go over both those. You'll see also this happen in the Reveal book. You'll see some problems in Reveal. They'll look like this on Reveal. It'll put like a plus and minus out in front of this situation. So it's telling you, be careful, there's really two answers. So we want the square root of 36. We're looking for what two numbers times together that give you 36. Now there's a lot of things that times together give you 36. You could have 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, okay? But those are not what we're looking for. We're looking for what number times itself. So the only situation here would be a positive and a negative 6. Positive 6 times positive 6 is 36, and a negative 6 times negative 6 is 36. So once again though, for me, you can just put 6, but be careful on some of the assignments that will ask for a positive and negative sign. Okay? Let's have you look at a simple one. Let's say you want to take the square root of 144. So once again, we're looking for what number times itself that gives you 144. Well, that is 12 times 12. 12 times 12 is the square root. 12 times 12 is 144. Okay. Now, does every number have a square root? Let's say you're looking for a situation like this. We want to find the square root of 27. Now, 27 does break down to be 3 times 9. But that is not what we're against what we're looking for. We're looking for what number times itself that gives you that. Okay, so if you think there's not a perfect whole number that gives you the square root of 27. So you might need to use a calculator for this. So if you put this in your calculator and you get the square root of 27, you see it turns out to be 5.196, and then it keeps going. Okay, but we want to just round this to the nearest tenth. So our answer would be 5.2. So as you're doing these, not every square root will turn out to be a whole number. So square root of 144 is 12, square root of 36 is 6, square root of 25 is 5. But we can do the square root of 27. It just turns out to be a decimal. We get 5.2. If we're asking for, let's say, the square root of 41, okay? So once again, if you look at it, there is not a perfect number that gives you the square root of 41. It's going to turn out to be a decimal. So if you put that in your calculator and round to the nearest tenth, you end up with roughly 6.4. Okay? So you're looking for both. Now, do you remember when we did these in class? Let's say you had the square root of 25 over 81. So we want to take the square root of a fraction. Well, we just treat this like two separate problems, okay? So we want to take the square root of 25, and the square root of 25 is 5, and then we treat it like the second problem as the bottom, the square root of 81, and the square root of 81 is 9. So the square root of 25 over 81 turns out to be 5 over 9, okay? Let's have you guys look at one real quick. So the square root of 64 over 100. So once again, we just want to look at this like it's two separate problems. We want to take the square root of 64, which is 8, and take the square root of 100, which is 10. And we end up with 8 tenths. Now, I'm okay if you put that answer. Technically, 8 tenths would reduce down to 4/5, but I'm okay if you leave it 8 over 10. Okay? Now, we do have this situation as well. So let's say we have x squared equals 49. Okay? And it asks you to solve this equation. Well, it's just simply, we're just trying to get x by itself here. So the opposite of squaring something was taking the square root. So if I take the square root of x squared, we get x. Well, whatever I do to one side, I must do the other side as well. So I have to take the square root of 49. So the square root of 49 turns out to be 7. Okay? So this is just another way of looking at square roots as well in the equation form. These are the ones that you need to be careful with in ALEKS. I do believe these are the ones that's going to, when you come out when you do these, you're going to ask, and you're going to put a +7 and a -7 as your answer. Okay? I think ALEKS actually typing in like a +7, comma, space, -7, and list it that way for your answer on ALEKS. If we have this situation, x squared equals 64. So once again, we're just taking for the square root of x squared, which is x, and we want to take the square root of 64, which turns out to be 8. But be careful when you're putting in ALEKS, it's going to ask for a +8 and a -8 as your answer. Okay? So two different ways of looking at square roots. Alright, square roots just under the sign, and then also the equation form. Okay, so if we look at quick review one more time, if we have just basic square roots, let's say we have the square root of 121, we're looking for what number times by itself that gives you this. Well, there happens to be a whole number. The square root of 121 is 11. So 11 is my final answer. We also do have situations where it turns out to be decimal. So if we ask for the square root of 35, there is not a perfect square root of 35. So you need to use a calculator and round to the nearest tenth, and you get roughly like 5.916, and it keeps going. So we just want to round that to the nearest tenth and put about 5.9. Okay, so you could get decimal answers as well. We also need to look at them in being a fraction form. So if it asks for the square root of 4 over 25, we treat it like two separate problems. The square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 25 is 5. So there's my final answer. And then we have the ones that are in equation form. So if we have x squared equals 36, it's really just taking the square root as well. We're just trying to solve the equation. Take the square root of x squared, we get x. Take the square root of 36, which breaks down to be 6. But that's okay with me. But be careful once again in ALEKS, it's probably going to ask for 6, comma, -6 as your final answer. Alright. Okay, when you get done with watching the video, there is a couple questions on square roots on Canvas you need to make sure you answer. When you're done with that, then the following day, there's an assignment in ALEKS that you need to do. There is nothing in Reveal this time, so go ahead and do that. For Friday, We do have a Nearpod assignment. I hope you enjoy doing those. It's kind of a little different way of looking at things. And this Friday's will count on your grade as well. Okay. Hope everybody's being safe and have a good time. We'll see you later.